Now, the African Development Bank Group's 2025 annual meeting centered the third day in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, as African leaders, policymakers, and financial experts navigate turbulent shift in global trade. 47 of Africa's 54 countries are feeling the impact of new U.S. trade measures, while 22 nations now facing tariffs of up to 50% on a broad range of export. Well, coupled with a decline in USAID funding and evolving U.S. foreign assistance priorities, African nations are being urged to look inward. The theme challenges countries to harness the continent's own wealth, its human, natural, financial and commercial capital to drive structural transformation and sustainable growth from within. Well, Arise business correspondent Bosin Omofai joins me now from Abidjan, Ivory Coast, and I hear you have, of course, a special guest there in Abidjan. Thank you for joining us, Bosin. Good to see you.
Nigeria's finance minister, who's just out of a major meeting of
the new strategy for the African Development Bank, and in particular, who will emerge out of the five largely highly qualified candidates. And the discussion really is about the governance of the African Development Bank. It's been an issue that is still on the table and is of concern to quite a few investors, shareholders, governors and countries that are involved with the African Development Bank. Of course, the issue of capital is important, the issue of resources, especially at a time when official development assistance and even the flow of concessional financing to the developing world, to Africa in particular, is actually in reverse. More is being paid out in debt repayments and so forth than is being received in new financing. And those are key issues, along with the fact that there's been a relatively slow pace of disbursement and implementation. So, of course, the impact of the financing cannot really be felt except that disbursement rate is speeded up and projects are completed that the board approve. So these are some of the conversations that have been on the table, but I think high on the agenda is the fact that more resources are needed in an institution such as the African Development Bank so it can fulfill its mandate to help African countries.
Thank you, Mr. Honorable Minister. Nigeria is the largest shareholder in the AfDB and a founding member of the DFI. How much more support would Nigeria be willing to give to the DFI, the AfDB, at this very crunching time?
Well, it's important to mention that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has recently approved a replenishment of the $500 million Nigeria Trust Fund of the African Development Bank. So that's a key element of support and commitment and financial engagement with, in particular, the less well-off African countries at a time when others are drawing back. As I said earlier, from development assistance, Nigeria is stepping up to the plate, is replenishing the Nigeria Trust Fund at the AfDB.
Interesting, we have about 3 more days as far as the annual meeting is concerned, and we'll want to know in terms of what the Ministry of Finance will be having as other discussions with other institutions and shareholders and investors in the AfDB, how much we're looking to get from even if the private sector supporting not just the AfDB but Nigeria's economic development.
Well, this is an important gathering of not just the African financial leaders, governors of the African Development Bank, which are mainly ministers of finance and their alternates, but also the non-regionals. So you have the European countries here, you have even the Asian countries here. So it is a veritable platform on which to discuss transactions effectively. And for Nigeria, of course, in particular, it's an opportunity to showcase the macroeconomic reforms that have meant that distortions are being removed the economy is stabilizing, and now as we are pushing for growth, as we are pushing for rapid, sustained, inclusive growth, important conversations are being had with the private sector representatives that are here. But on that topic of Nigeria, I think I must mention something quite topical, which is the external rolling borrowing plan of Nigeria. It is in the news, it is topical, and it's important we speak to it, other than the fact that the Ministry of Finance has released a press release. Now, there's a narrative that has come out that Nigeria, in between 2025 and 2026, is looking to borrow and draw down something like $25 billion. Nothing could be further from the truth. That is not correct. That is not the case. What is the case is that under the rules, under the medium-term expenditure framework, there is a requirement to present every 2 years a 3-year projection of external borrowings. And the Debt Management Office Act of 2003 also requires, is also another reason why that rolling plan has to be laid and announced and put before the National Assembly in particular. Now, it is an amalgam of all the projects, some at the federal level, some at the state level, which are being discussed and are being processed. And the large majority of those projects are in fact concessional financing from development partners, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and bilateral partners such as the Japanese, the French, and so on and so forth. So it is a projection of what may happen over a number of years. These are the projects that are being considered, and they are project finance, so they are never drawn down in one go. They are drawn down over 5, 6, 7 years in which it would take to implement these projects. And they are project finance in the main. In the transport sector, road rail projects, irrigation projects, agricultural development projects, and so on and so forth. So these are core economic drivers, and the funding is spread over a number of years. And every 2 years, it's a rolling plan. So some projects drop off and some come on. The reality is that in any given year, such as in 2025, the plan for external borrowing is about $1.2 billion through the Debt Management Office, and about another $2 billion through bilateral loans, which conditions have to be met and put in place even before that can be drawn down. So it is a far cry from saying that in any 1 year or even any 2-year period, $25 billion will be drawn down. The government is committed to fiscal sustainability. It is committed to management of debt within reasonable levels. And one important aspect of that is a focus on revenue. Focus on revenue from government-owned enterprises, the surpluses that they are due to give government. We're using the latest technology and once again driving compliance, blocking of loopholes, and gathering of funds that are due to the government. And of course, you have seen the recent progress of the tax reform bills, which will also, amongst other very positive aspects of what they will do to improve the economic environment, to improve the business environment, they will add to revenue. And equally topical, the information about how NNPC is looking to ramp up production and in addition commit and provide the Federation account with more savings from the subsidy, despite some reconciliation discussions that are going on. All these point to the fact that there's a focus on driving up revenue, relying less on debt. And that is a determination, that's a commitment of the government.
Mr. Honorable Minister, quite extensive. So in summary, how much actually is Nigeria the government looking to borrow over the 2 to 3 year period? What's the actual amount, the figure?
The figure for 2025 is $1.2 billion, and from through the debt management office, and about roughly another $2 billion from multilateral funding. But as I say, that multilateral funding is project-based, so it is not drawn all in one go. It is drawn according to timelines and milestones, so we may not even be able to get to that projected $2 billion for 2025. And as I say, it's a rolling plan, so as some projects drop out, others come in, and the figure in the external borrowing plan was a compendium and a plan that showed all the various projects that are in the offing. And as I said, a lot of them are project finance, and many of them, what the emphasis these days is on ensuring that that project finance, even though government comes in and puts down funds for key infrastructure, that where there is a revenue element, that the private sector is crowded in, is invited in. So in the instance that toll roads are built, the private sector can and is often being given the opportunity to concession. In terms of power plants, in the offing there is a 1 gigawatt solar power plant. That, once it's built, will be handed over to the private sector on a concessional as a concession. And what that means is that the revenue from these projects helps to pay down the debt. So you can even say that a lot of this debt financing is self-liquidating. And that's an important aspect of debt management, financial prudence, and sustainability.
All right. So who is Nigeria rooting for to be the next president of the AfDB? On Thursday is the election day. I'm sure you have the voting card on behalf of Nigeria, Mr. Minister.
Definitely, as having the privilege of being the governor, I do have the Nigerian vote, and it's an important one. Nigeria is the largest shareholder, is a key is a key factor in this election, and indeed in the African Development Bank and its operations, its future, and its prospects. And so we take very seriously the fact that the weight of our vote can determine things. So we're in consultations. Of course, we're in consultations not just back in Nigeria, but from what we see on the ground here. And those consultations continue, the discussions, the inquiring into who best will run the African Development Bank for the next 5 years continues. And as of this time, it's too early to disclose or even to finalize on voting. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'm sure this is a very important development for Nigeria as the largest shareholder in the AfDB group. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, who's been speaking with Arise News here exclusively from the AfDB annual meetings 2025 in Cote d'Ivoire. Back to you in the studio, Frank.
Thank you so much, Bosun. There's so much to take away, and of course, we'll connect with you in the subsequent days ahead. Thank you so much, Bosun.